Hello, Network, and welcome to this edition of Look, Lead, Learn, where we'll be exploring the ways in which business leaders have navigated change to ultimately learn, adapt, and grow through what has been a very uncertain and fast-moving last few years for us all. My name's Lewis Morgan from Cedus, and today I'm joined by Elizabeth Clark, CEO and co-founder of Dream Agility, the Google shopping experts whose AI-driven platform sits between Google and the retailer's website to produce a market-leading ROI for their clients. Elizabeth, would you like to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about your business and what you do there?
Yeah, so I'm Elizabeth. Nice to meet you. Actually, mechanical engineer by trade and got into this side of things fairly late in life. We're based up in Ramsbottom. We've got clients in the UK, the US, and America, and we service everything from tiny feeds to feeds at 3.5 million products big. So it doesn't matter whether it's B2C, B2B, D2C, whether it's an air conditioning unit or a frock, we look at it.
I wanted to ask you a little bit about kind of the speed of change in today's world. Obviously, you experienced some quite successful rapid growth in the States and you had to change where you were going quite quickly. I also know you work very closely with Google, and you've mentioned before that they're prone to moving the goalposts, if you like, as often as and as dramatically as they fancy on the given week. And of course, this isn't exclusive to you and Google. Things are progressing, changing, moving all the time, and actually only seems to be getting faster, certainly from where we're sitting. How do you combat this, and what impact has it had on you, but also what implications do you think it's having on like the wider industry?
I think with Google, everybody tends to just use Google as it is. And the way we work is we've actually taken all the Google APIs and we pulled them together our side and we built a platform. So we're not just taking Google's data and presenting it back to people in a nice interface that's easy to use. We're actually taking Google's data, we're running our machine learning over the top of it and giving completely different outcomes and pushing that back up to Google. So we do have something that's very different to what you get if you were using Google. If you were the likes of Bing or Microsoft Advertising, they call it now, you have to copy exactly what Google's done, because if you don't do what Google's done, nobody's going to use your product. The challenge with everybody doing the same thing is you all get the same results. So we have to make sure that what we're doing is smarter than what everyone else is doing with the Google stuff to give completely different and better results. So it's quite disruptive what we're doing. Some people don't get it. So even though we do an audit and we'll say, right, well, we've looked at your account, we can see there's this opportunity or that opportunity. The big challenge you've got is in all the accounts we've ever looked at, only 5% of keywords have ever converted, which people can't quite get their heads around because they go, I've got tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of keywords in here and you're telling me only 5% work. Yes, that's true. And only 3% of your advertising spend converts, which means 97% doesn't work. So we spend our time optimizing the stuff that works and the stuff that doesn't work. So as opposed to just focusing on, because Google runs that whole industry and we have to be ready to move with anything they throw at us. They've just released completely new APIs. We've worked on the same 3 APIs for years. They've totally changed them out and it's doing some mad stuff at the moment. So I imagine the engineers at Google are very busy right now. So you literally, you're dealing with something that Google to us feels like sometimes it's falling apart at the seams. It does some things that can't be explained, aren't in their rules, shouldn't be happening, but that doesn't help my clients, it doesn't help me. We've all got to jump in and get stuck in and figure out what on earth's going on and put solutions in place to fix it. We've found things that are wrong with Google that have been wrong for years, that have never been fixed. So we can't rely on Google to fix something that's broken or has never worked. We have to find solutions for that. So we have a roadmap and overall we know where we want to be. But as and when something crazy happens with Google, we all have to jump in and go, right, well, that's been pushed down to the bottom now, or this new product's been released by Facebook, or this new thing's come out there. So we're constantly going back in and having to look at the roadmap and where we are and what all the project costings things are in order to be able to see where we're going with that. You've got a lovely little tool that you showed me the other day that would have been so much useful with my investors many years ago to have had that and be able to plot everything against it. Would have been marvelous. But yeah, we're constantly going back and prioritizing what we've got.
Great. Yeah, it's definitely that rapid learning and iteration is just so important, especially when you're in these sort of fast moving markets, which we're kind of all finding ourselves in now. It's interesting what you say about having your roadmap, but then as soon as something happens, jumping on it straight away, and that kind of principle of jumping on things early or addressing problems early before they become much bigger further down the line is really key. And it's you mentioned there our kind of view of strategic divergence at CDIS and the sort of visualizations we can produce. And one of the analogies we use is if you've got an asteroid coming to Earth and it's, you know, 1 million miles away, you probably only need to flick it and it will go off course by 1 degree. But by the time it reaches Earth, it'll be hundreds of miles away from you. If you leave it till it's entering the atmosphere, you've got to throw 10 nukes at it and kick it off at a 90 degree angle just for it to graze you. So there's obviously a principle in Agile of sort of failing fast and failing early and learning and iterating. But I think it's more than that, right? Because Agile is often very near-minded, and there's not always that link between, yes, there's sort of ruthless prioritization in the short term, but there's not that link between that action in the short term over the next 2-3 month time horizon, or even over the course of the sprint, to how that actually impacts your overall strategy when you're looking 2-3 years into the future, for example. So I'm sure there's things that Google have changed, or like you said, features you could have essentially discommissioned that are now proven very valuable because, you know, you still have that higher vision and that higher strategy that all the work you do is linking into.
We try and be as commercial as possible as well. There's sometimes you see a bit of CV building going on. Somebody wants to do a particular project because it'll look good on their CV, or somebody wants to work with a particular technology because that'll look good on their CV. Is it right for the business? Is it right for the department? So you've got to sort of juggle all those things as well and sort of find out that, you know, we can't just do things because people find them interesting. That would be lovely, but it's not very commercial. And, you know, software developers obviously aren't often very commercial because they're balls deep in the code. So it's bringing that balance to making sure the work is interesting, making sure the work is valuable, and making sure we can commercialize what we're doing. We can sit and invent technology. We have far too much technology because we've always just built things. So, but like I say, since lockdown, we've been a lot more disciplined and focused on, right, how can we monetize it more, and how can we make it, well, it's already very robust, but how can we just make it tighter? That makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, I think it's all too easy, especially in like a really tech-driven firm or really tech-driven environment, to once you begin the process, to just get lost in the doing and the day-to-day and not really keeping track of that overarching vision you had at the beginning, where it all seems so perfect and simple, but also, like, often unknowingly, unfortunately, ending up further away from your strategic targets off in the future somewhere. Right, so you've always got to have that connection between the work you do and your strategic goals. And, you know, without plugging our framework too much over the course of this, we do that obviously, as you know, through data and modeling, and so we were able to map each increment of value directly back to the outcomes themselves. I was just going to ask you, because obviously you market yourself as a very data-driven company as well, with a very data-driven product, you know, got very comprehensive algorithms and machine learning within your organization. But what role does data have to play at Dream Agility internally? You know, are you applying that kind of scientific approach to your own business plan, or are you basing decisions off gut and instinct?
We've got lots of accountants around us. So our CTO is an economist and an accountant. We have a management consultant who is an accountant. We just hired a new board director who is an accountant. So everybody loves numbers. We set Xero. I've worked with Xero from the get-go. We had an accountant that didn't use Xero. They used Sage, but it was a desktop-based thing. And you think, for heaven's sake, no idea how difficult it was trying to find an accountant that will work with Xero. But once we've got Xero, we can set up all our cost codes. We can do all our different budget lines in it. We can do all our scenario, all that sort of stuff. So having lots of accountants around, they like to work in Xero. So we're very driven by money as well as by data. There is a bit of a mismatch with where your technology really comes in between sort of the business plan. You've got stuff going on with the Asana and GitHub and that sort of thing, and then you've got Xero. But there is that kind of missing gap in the middle that you guys plug very nicely.